You're listening to GotTechED the Podcast with your hosts, Eric Geis and Nick Johnson. Welcome back to GotTechED the Podcast. This is episode 57 called Greenscreening EdTech with Jen Leban. In this episode, we'll talk about some of our favorite greenscreening EdTech and classroom project ideas. Following that, we'll put Jen on the GotTechED hot seat as we ask her about some of her favorite classroom ideas. Check it out. Our guest today is a 6th through 8th grade art and technology teacher. She is national board certified as well as a 2020 Illinois State Teacher of the Year finalist. In addition, she is an ambassador for WeVideo Flipgrid Wakelet Classroom Q and creator of the YouTube web series Reset EDU. Welcome to the show, Jennifer Leban. Jen, how you doing tonight?
Hey, I'm doing good. How are you?
We're doing really good. We're hanging in there, and we're excited to have you on the show. I know Geis especially has been talking to you for a while, and we have a lot of common interests that I think align with what GotTechED is all about. So we're pretty pumped to finally make this happen.
What was really funny about that intro is Nick was progressively turning red as he was trying to read all of that with one breath. I saw it. So, Jen, tell us a little bit. I want to just hop right into it because there's a whole lot of stuff I want to ask you because I am now getting into making a green screen area in our media center. So I want to get there, but I want to talk a little bit with you about Reset EDU. You have a YouTube channel and a website. Just tell us what you can about it.
Well, it is my Google Innovator project. So when you go through Google Innovator, everybody has like a project. I like to think of it as like a teacher passion project kind of that you come up with. And mine was all about like, hey, how do we make teaching fun when you've been teaching for 20 years and it gets really boring, which is, kind of autobiographical. So how do I approach that problem? And you have all kinds of options. Do I start a podcast? Do I create an online forum? Do I do, whatever, all these things? Do you write a book? And I sort of fell on YouTube channel because it was something that not a lot of people did. And I wanted to do something that is, I like to do things that are not the norm. And video is kind of my wheelhouse, and it's sort of the thing that I've become known for. So even though I feel like my technical quality isn't the most professional, I have fun doing it. And I don't know. So that's just kind of how I fell into it. And as time goes on, there's more and more people. They just kind of ask me to talk about it.
That's awesome. I know me personally, I ran into you a little bit through Twitter chats, I think at one point early last year. But then I actually was starting to look up green screen stuff on YouTube, and you popped up, and I was like, I know that name a little bit. And you know what? I think I know her a little bit from the Twitterverse. So I started watching some of them. They are really, really cool. So
thank you.
Let's get right into the whole green screen and video production topic. So, tell us a little bit about it. For our listeners out there that don't know what a green screen is or video production, or maybe they're interested in it, just give us the rundown of it.
Okay. So green screen is just kind of like the common term that teachers use for what's actually known as color keying, because you don't actually need a green screen. It could be a blue wall or a blue screen or anything that's just kind of contrasting from whatever your foreground object is. And it's just the ability to kind of select that color and key it out or make it transparent. So, but it's just, people have come to just kind of know as green screen because green is just a very common color that's used.
Is there a reason they use that classic green coloration? Is that easier to sort of crop out than other colors?
Well, art teacher Jen will tell you that if you think about skin tones tend to be more warm colors. Kinds of in the reds and peaches and warm browns tones and everything. And green is the color that is opposite of red on the color wheel. So that is the most different that it could be. So I suspect that's why.
Or for me, they're pretty much just two shades of gray.
Yeah. Or me, super pale white. I could just have a black background.
So Nick usually, he's very good at pranking me all the time. And we shared a desk for, I don't know, like 12 years. And I would literally color code everything basically using animals with my school stuff. And he would always mess with me. It's just that type of relationship. He's cruel and unusual, so.
It's true. It's how I made it through my day most of the time. I have a question because I'm a classroom teacher and I'm pretty involved with video production, just making like screencasts mostly for my own students as part of the class. But what would you say to like the regular classroom teacher who hears green screening and one thinks maybe it's a little too complex or maybe struggles to see the relevance? Is there a role for your average high school, middle school? I don't even know if elementary, if this is feasible for something at that level. I feel like it probably is, but what do you say to these people who are sort of not directly in the tech media world?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I would say is that it is kind of a misconception that it's complicated because it's really easy, especially with like the tools that are available now. And I do know elementary teachers that use green screen with their students. I mostly see it in core subject areas like science reports or book reports or newscasts or anywhere where you would do like a skit or some type of performance or even like a dramatic, maybe like a play or something. The fact that you can do it on video and you can have entire, sets without having to have all of these, real life objects, it certainly makes life a lot easier.
Yeah.
So if you're a teacher in the classroom and you want to do very minimal spending for the setup for a green screen, what do you need to get this done?
Well, there are actually ways to get a green screen effect without having a green screen at all. If you just used any kind of like transparent PNGs and things like that, you can achieve a lot of the same effects. But if you specifically want to key out anything that's green, one thing would be to just paint a wall green. I mean, a gallon of paint is very inexpensive. And at my school, my PTA actually painted the hallway in the basement for me. Previous to that, I had a green bed sheet that I put on the wall. I didn't buy like an official green screen. I've even seen teachers paint, the old pull-down maps that we have that no one uses anymore. Yeah. People paint those green and use those as a green screen, and that's assuming that you're doing like full-size people, humans. If you're doing smaller, green screen with like puppets or silhouettes or action figures, it could just be like a green sheet of construction paper.
I'm glad you brought up for regular classroom teachers, even just something like a lab report, just the past couple weeks, I've been working with another teacher who's starting to do their science. She's an AP bio teacher, and she wanted to have her kids do a lab report in a different way. And she was kind of doing like an infographic style thing with, there's a thing online at easel.ly. Is that the one, guys?
Yes.
Is that how easel.ly. So having the kids put together like a very visual lab report, but it did get me thinking, like you could create that visual and then with the green screen effect, have them sort of record themselves talking in front of it, almost like weatherman style, and like pointing to things behind them. So it kind of opens up a giant world for things that are typically seen as sort of more mundane, like a lab report. And you can actually make them pretty exciting and creative with that. So I think that's important for people to hear.
I've always wanted to see an English teacher do that with a paper and have the students actually standing in front of their word processing document to point out like, this is my thesis statement. And this is my first example and my second example, because like you're saying, that's something that could be really mundane until you're having the kids like stand up and like miming it out.
Yeah, that is super cool. When I think of all these awesome projects, I also think about barriers and obstacles. Because usually what I try to do is think of the barriers, obstacles, get out ahead of them, and try to give the teacher that I'm working with a way to get around those obstacles. So let's just take a second and talk about some of the misconceptions of green screening and video production as a whole. So what are a couple of these misconceptions?
One thing is just that it has to be expensive, and it does not, because you can just use what you have laying around. Also, as far as like cameras, you don't need fancy cameras and microphones or even lights. I mean, just if you're near a window, natural light is great. If you're using your Chromebook camera, that is great. I mean, depending on the level of your students, if they're in high school and you're having them use a mobile device, that works too. I mean, so I'm very much of the philosophy that you were saying, where people think of barriers, but I like to think of like, yeah, but how can we make that work? Like, you see this thing, but what if we did this instead? So very yes and.
Right.
I like yes and. I think that's a good way of handling things. So going along with the cost and everything, I also see one as maybe just being so time consuming. That's one of the biggest things with any professional development, any activity that we try to integrate into the classroom, and really any technology that we try to use, is it's either too time consuming to learn, too time consuming to, I don't know, so they can get through the curriculum in a decent amount of time. Do you run into these same problems?
Yeah, those concerns are very much kind of like, I guess, in teaching art. When you have kids draw, you have some kids that can knock something out in 5 minutes and they're like, I'm done. But if you give them the opportunity to draw, you have kids that'll spend a week on it. I mean, I think that video is kind of like that. So if you start out up front telling students, we have one class period for you to complete this, or you get 3 days to work on this, you kind of set up that time expectation, I think, up front, because the time management has to be part of that. It's like when you watch Chopped and you got to make breakfast in 20 minutes. It's that kind of a thing. Like, the time is part of the kind of the constructs of your assignment.
And like anything else, so we say this all the time on our show, it's, a lot of these projects, they do take a good amount of time at the beginning, but it's you do it and you invest that time and you get these amazing results and these amazing projects, and then you can keep using them like anything else. I mean, it's really easy to come up with a quick project where you only have to put in 20 minutes and it's a worksheet and like a prompt, and the kids just maybe type something, but you're not excited about that from year to year. It doesn't keep you coming back. It doesn't keep, like you said, the yes and thing, I think, is a cool analogy, where it doesn't make you say, well, like, what else can I do? So I think there's, there's a big return on that investment. And if we sort of pay more attention to that, there's a lot of payoff there. We just had Bruce Reicher on our show. I see you. It seems like Bruce. You've got sort of a Wakelet resource there. What's that all about?
Yeah, Bruce and I are good buddies. We did hang out at ISTE together last summer because he's on the East Coast and he teaches. Well, I'm sure when you talked to him, you heard all about it, but he has his newscast that he does with his students. But we are both ambassadors for WeVideo. So we talk about a lot of video stuff together. We both, are really passionate about the tool. And because of that, we both connected. We both work with Wakelet too. So we have this collaborative Wakelet board. And anytime we find cool green screen ideas, like on Twitter or somewhere, we just add it to our board. And then Bruce is very much the cheerleader. He shares it out with anybody. So if somebody mentions green screen on Twitter, you will probably get a response from Bruce with a link to our board.
That's awesome.
Bruce is fantastic. We had a great time with him, and he's actually going to guest moderate one of our EduMentor chats on Wednesday night. We're hoping that maybe sometime we could get you in there for that. That's putting you on the spot, so I'll let you answer that later.
I say yes to everything, so that's so I'm sure we can work it out.
That was easy. All right, so we'll reach out to you at some point and hopefully set up that EduMentor Twitter chat. I always confuse that, but let's keep moving. So the next misconception that I kind of want to go over, I have a story about me getting observed, and I had this lesson that I was super pumped about. I was jazzed up. It was problem-based learning. It was student-centered learning. It had to do with lab tables. I brought in 3 different types of water from 3 different bodies of water. I had substrates in the bottom. They were pouring water everywhere, testing pH, dropping in acid rain all over the place. And one of the comments that I got was, this lesson was too chaotic. And I saw that as a compliment, but apparently it wasn't. So in my review, it said that, I need to bring the students in. But they were excited about it. They were jazzed up about it. But do you see green screen and video production lessons leading to total chaos?
Well, I kind of take issue with your story there because I feel like your admin had like a weird idea of what learning looked like. Do you know what I mean? They seemed very old school because I was like, I would see that chaos as like engagement, but I get it. Like, teachers are afraid to kind of like loosen up the reins and like let that control happen. But I think it's important. There are certain things that I put in place, though, to try to, I guess, minimize chaos, but you kind of have to be okay with it. I like groups of 2. Anytime I've done groups of 3 or 4, because I've tried it, I feel like it's less than optimal in my classes because I always have that kid that's kind of sitting and not doing anything. So until we can get maybe a better system going, maybe like more time, better structure, I just find groups of 2 work for me. And then I break my project up into parts. So like I give the students a grade just for their planning and their storyboarding, and they have to conference with me before we start actually filming.
It's it's so funny you mentioned those two things, because I feel like this is my 12th year teaching, and just the past couple of years I finally started figuring out how to tweak like little things like that. That's so much streamline a project that could otherwise be pretty complex. Like for me, it's typically like labs, right? I had kids in groups of 3 to 4, and I could never understand why it got so crazy in class. But then I was like, just put them in groups of 2, and now everybody has something to do. Everybody has a job, so it sort of just takes care of all that. And even just something as simple as sort of giving them these. I know you said like break it up into chunks, but give them these timelines of like, there's 2 days in class devoted to this thing. You can work outside that, but it's not going to be on my time. Like this is the time I've set aside. If you need more, that's on you. And that's crazy effective, because they hear that as like, oh shoot, I guess we better actually use this time, because they don't want to use their own time. They want to take advantage of what they're given. And if you just phrase it that way, it's a lot more effective than sort of coming in with these hard deadlines or just totally leaving it up to them. So those are some pretty powerful things there. And I think it's good to step back and just focus. It's almost like a relaxed form of classroom management, almost, where you sort of trick them into doing these things. I hate to say it like that, but that's kind of what it is, right?
You're right.
So let's talk a little bit about, your setup at your school. So how many setups do you have? So how many groups can work at one time? Or if someone is absent, how do you deal with people being absent or missing for any reason?
Oh, okay. I had to think about that. I'm like, because I don't necessarily keep like equipment for a certain number of groups. We are one-to-one Chromebooks. So your Chromebook is your device or your equipment. I've had classes as large as 28. And then I've got 14 videos happening. It just is what it is. Our basement hallway is very long. I can't fit 14 in there. So they kind of monitor themselves based on when they're ready to film, and they sort of cycle in and out. And it's like, if you're not filming, get out of the hallway. The other thing is we do have to talk about having a plan. So if your group member is absent or on an extended vacation, that they have a Google Drive folder with all the content shared there. If we're using WeVideo, they can share the project with each other, and then any content that's in there, they do both have access to already. So it depends on your tool. But even with that, I always say Google Drive shared folder.
So let's say I'm a teacher listening to this and I want to start doing some of this stuff. I don't know, within the next couple of weeks, it kind of has the creative juices flowing. What are kind of like the go-to EdTech tools that you would recommend to people where they could go to start playing around with this? What do you like that's out there right now?
Well, my number one favorite tool of all time is WeVideo, and I will talk your ear off about it. I like it because it works on all platforms. Okay. It's iOS, it's Chromebook, it's Android, it's mobile, it's desktop, whatever you need. Anywhere you can access the internet, you can get to it. It's not device dependent. So iMovie is great. iPads are great. I love them. I'm Apple at home, and we are Chromebooks at school. So the problem with iMovie is that it is device dependent. So you're tied to whatever that thing is. I know a lot of teachers like Do Ink, which I always called Doink until I learned otherwise. That's an app for green screen for iPads. I know a lot of elementary teachers like that one. But there's lots of other things you can use too. Screencastify, Flipgrid, things like that to film.
Have you ever heard of unscreen.com?
I just heard about it, actually, and I saw that you had put it in the notes, and I was so excited. I have not gotten a chance to try it. What do you think of it?
Well, right now you could use it for, I think it's very short videos, like 5 seconds, but they're expanding that. I saw that on the site that they're going to expand to a longer amount of time. So I think it would be cool for, like, I say GIFs. Some people say GIFs, but
it's GIFs.
I think it's GIFs as well.
Agreed. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I will get myself a jar of that Jif peanut butter, Jif and GIF peanut butter. I just saw that, but they will both be on my shelf in my office, and I will probably never take a single scoop of peanut butter out of there. But that's me going off on a side note. But I think it could be very useful when you're just trying to make little GIFs to personalize learning or just be fun and funny.
I like the idea of Unscreen because WeVideo and Do Ink and those other things, there isn't a free green screen, a truly free green screen tool yet. Who knows? And Unscreen is the closest thing to that right now.
One thing I just thought, I don't know why I just thought of this, but Canva came out with Canva for Education, and I know that they're giving free accounts out to teachers and up to 30 students. And I know that they have a, the the background, I don't know, get rid of the background tool in with their pro version. So I'm wondering if that's going to carry over to the education version of Canva, because that could be something that's very useful. I know you're very artistic. Nick is very good. And I am pathetic. My stick figures don't even look like stick figures. I don't know what I could do, but I really rely on Canva and some of these other tools that make people that are very challenged artistically kind of seem as a passable human being in the realm of art.
I think it's cool too that you're right that there's not a great free thing yet, but I feel like it's almost right around the corner. We just recently discovered, we've kind of been fans of Screencast-O-Matic for a while, which is, I don't know if you know, pretty much like Screencastify, just like the other one that people choose from. And I don't know why I kind of attached to it early on, and it's been my go-to ever since for recording stuff from my computer, recording myself, or making screencasts for my students. And they just have a green screening feature that's been added too. And I think it's part of the pro version, but if you can sort of build it in with a tool that you're willing to pay for because it does so many other things, and you do kind of get this green screen capability just as part of a larger package that is something you're going to use or you're going to need anyway. And a lot of us are even lucky enough to have schools that'll support you in that and maybe fund some of those things. So I think that's worth mentioning also, is that a lot of the regular tools you would typically use are starting to have this kind of stuff like built into it, which is a nice thing.
My school, we have a district license for WeVideo, so yeah. I looked into it. But I absolutely agree that if you have a tool that you can use for multiple, and work into it. WeVideo does audio only recording, and they recently just released like the audio boost, which was like my sticking point that made me mad that they didn't have it. And now that they have it, it's such a game changer. Yeah. The other thing about WeVideo is that they have the library of like stock content. So if you're an elementary teacher, you can do whole videos without filming a single thing. So I feel like that tool is so powerful because it has all that stuff. It's not just a green screen tool. So I really think schools need to look into that, and I'd buy it for all districts everywhere because I feel it's so useful.
We have a district license, or we have a more than enough seat license, I guess, and we love it. And we're starting to venture out more into green screen land. We've already done podcasts through it. It's my go-to if I want to make an MP3 into an MP4. I love WeVideo for that as well. But we're starting to catch up with WeVideo a little bit, and we definitely like the diversity of the tool.
All right, so there's some EdTech tools and some misconceptions and some general information on green screening. Stick around. We're going to put Jen on the GotTech hot seat in our next segment. You can follow GotTech outside the podcast at gottech.com or on Twitter at WeGotTech. All right, so we're about to put Jen Leban on the GotTech hot seat. If you've never listened to the hot seat before, it's a little bit of a game segment that Geis and I put together where he comes up with some rapid fire questions for our guest. The guest has never seen these before, so it's literally just whatever comes out of their mouths in the moment. I get to enjoy listening to this. It's sort of from the sidelines, and then we sort of wrap it up where I get to ask some details on 3 responses that I find most interesting. So I've 2 questions. First is for Geis. Are you prepared with your prompts, sir?
I will go as fast as I can, yes.
All right. And Jen, do you feel ready to respond to these prompts?
Ready as I'll ever be.
All right. Whenever you guys are good, Geis, I guess you can get it started.
All right, here we go. What are your top 3 favorite extensions?
Number 1, Screencastify. Number 2, Color Pick Eyedropper. And number 3, Bitmoji.
What is your go-to teaching?
Anything hands-on where we're making something.
Would you rather be a mentor or a mentee?
Definitely the mentee.
What is your favorite educational quote?
Without deviation from the norm, progress is not possible. It's Frank Zappa.
Who are your top 2-3 people in your PLN that we should follow on social media?
I probably have a top 20, but I'll give you 3. Maria Galanis, Beth Richter, and that's Rihtar, and Lauren Heil.
And we'll put all those in the show notes, and we might even make a blog of Jen Leban's 20 top people to follow on social media. What are 3 components that you look for in PD?
Number 1, relevance. Number 2, sparking ideas, being creative. And number 3, having fun.
What is your favorite educational secret, hack, or shortcut?
My favorite educational secret is to just surround yourself with great, positive people.
And what are the top 3 things you could do to reset yourself as an educator?
It's a little bit harder. Number 1, kind of look within yourself. What can you change? Number 2, do something different on purpose and take a risk. And number 3, do something silly in front of your kids, like show off your sweet dance moves.
I do that all the time. I like to do my duty, shake my booty every once in a while down the hallway. That's just what I do. But
I've seen it. It's not pretty, but that does happen.
Yeah, it kind of looks like a flamingo mating dance, I think. I'm not sure.
But you're having fun, right?
I have a great time. So usually we only give 7, but we gave 8 because I wanted to really throw that recent question in there and personalize the question experience.
Yeah, so all around fantastic responses, but as usual, there's kind of 3 things that jumped out to me. And the first one is something near and dear to my heart. And people kind of always look at me like I'm crazy for how much I love this thing. But when you answered about the 3 favorite extensions and you mentioned the Color Pick eyedropper, I don't know how I could live without this thing. And I don't think people usually look at me, like I said, what could you possibly need that for? But for me, there's just so many times I'm kind of obsessive about making sure, everything matches and it's color themed. Like every unit that I have, there's like a certain color theme to those things. So that's why it's important to me. And it just makes that so easy to do. I think the students respond when they know that somebody's put that level of attention into the stuff they're looking at is what I think. How have you found this useful enough to mention today for the hot seat?
Well, for me as a teacher, it makes all my stuff look way more professional. So when we're doing Scratch and my stuff is the same colors as Scratch, it just looks more, it looks more official or more legit in the eyes of middle schoolers. But we also use it in Google Draw. We do self-portraits. So we use the Color Pick eyedropper to pick the colors off of the photo to make our images. They look a lot like Adobe Illustrator kind of vectory images. So it's great for that too. So not just picking matching colors for branding and things, and fancifying stuff, but that too.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Not. I have to add this because I really think that this extension was made for colorblind people.
That's true.
It let me know what shade of gray I'm looking at. So I had to throw that one.
Yeah, and I think it can even give you the little hex codes, right? So if you want to type in the color to get it on any kind of platform, it does all that. So it's a great tool, and I think people should probably put more stock into it. The other thing I like that you pointed out is the question about your favorite educational secret hack or shortcut. You mentioned surrounding yourself with positive people. I think that's such a big part of what we do with the podcast. And I don't know if you've found a similar thing with the stuff you're involved in, but could you talk a little bit more about what that means to you and kind of what that actually gives you? Because it's an easy thing to say, but to actually do it, I don't know if as many people practice that as they should.
Yeah, I have an interesting kind of a backstory, and I guess the best way I could explain it is a lot of teachers are familiar with the story of the marigolds and the walnut trees, and that you want to surround yourself with marigolds because, gardener stuff, that marigolds help other plants around them grow, and walnut trees kind of impede growth. Well, I was a walnut tree. I was a terrible, nasty teacher, and I was dragging other people around, or dragging them down with me. And I had a coworker that kind of told me what was going on, and it was hard to hear, but I really thought about it and consciously strove to kind of turn things around. And I found that when I surrounded myself with positive people, that it kind of helped me become more of a positive person. So personal experience.
I've never heard of the marigold walnut. I've never heard of that ever.
Oh, I will have to give you the link to the story.
I definitely want to read whatever story there is there, because I definitely dig that. That's really cool. We have a starfish story. I'm sure you heard of that one.
It made a difference to that one starfish.
That one.
That's right. We're going to steal the marigold thing, though, because that's not as big of a deal out here on the East Coast, I guess.
Oh, I first heard about it in the Cult of Pedagogy. It was a Jennifer Gonzalez post. So, yeah, I'll forward you that.
She's amazing.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so that's really cool, really powerful to hear. I'm glad you shared that with us. And then the last thing about resetting yourself, I know that ties in with your YouTube web series, which I think is awesome, and people should check it out for ideas and inspiration and so much. But I like how you pointed out just kind of of doing something different or being silly or making a mistake. It's a little harder for me to be silly in front of my students, but I have found something really super powerful is to be comfortable being wrong and making a mistake, to the point where I'll often like do it on purpose. Like literally just to lighten the mood. It just has this weird effect, and you do it and you laugh about it, or you wait for the kids to correct you and make that part of the whole experience. I think that kind of stuff goes such a long way. So is there like a certain thing that's like for me, it's making a mistake on purpose and kind of laughing, but what is your thing?
Like you're just letting the kids know that you're human. And they already think that we're total nerds anyways. So what are we trying to like protect? So my coworkers know that when I get mad, I start singing about stuff, and I'm like, because that's the best idea ever. When I mean, like, it's not, and they'll be like, uh-oh, Jen's singing it, watch out. So and I'm not a good singer, but I'll just start like, because that, I don't know. It's just this habit I had. I did it at a meeting one time and people looked at me weird and I was like, okay, that's my thing. So I'll do it around kids too. I don't know.
That's awesome. That's what I was looking for though. Like this was whatever weird little thing you do. So I often, sometimes too, like in the middle, if I'm like solving a super intense calculation on the boards, and I teach AP Chem, and some of the stuff they have to do is so, I hate to say boring, but it's so deep and so involved, and you're just like 10 minutes on one calculation. It's intense. Ooh. I'll just like stop and start drawing like a random, I don't know, a cat or a whale or just whatever on the board. And I don't explain it. I don't let the kids know I'm doing it. So they're just watching this weirdo up at the front of the room do this thing. But like you said, it just lets them know that you're a person and you're maybe struggling to pay attention just like they are. And it's okay to pause and take that brain break for a moment and just kind of, you show them, like you said, that you're just another person trying to make it through. So that's cool. Yeah, I took AP Chem, let me just tell you, and I wish that I had that support because I got a 2 on the test. No credit.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I didn't have AP Chem. I had AP Anatomy. I think I probably did about the same, and I ended up being a science teacher anyway. But one of the things that I do to change it up, and when I was in the science wing, I'm a tech coach now, but when I was a bio teacher and we would go over photosynthesis or, I don't know, soil composition, stuff like that, we have this window that opens outwards, and there's like a little ledge I could climb up to, and then we're pretty much at ground level. So when I knew that I was losing the students, they'd start yawning and all that good stuff because photosynthesis is not that exciting. At least I didn't think so. And maybe that was part of the problem. But anyway, I would just open the window, hop out, and I would have a shovel planted against the building, and I would just like dig something. And then I would bring it in and I would just throw it on top of the lab table and be like, this is our lab today. Teach me something. And
awesome.
They would go and they would take it apart and they'd be like, this. Oh, we found a rock. Here's a worm. Yay, that's great. And then at the end, we would take 5 minutes and they would have to teach me something. And they could go to Google, they could go to whatever they want. But, that window is like my saving grace. And even when Nick teaches, every once in a while, I'll just walk through. I won't say anything to them. Open the window, walk right out, and they're all very confused. But I feel like as much of a distraction it is, probably, it also gets them to kind of lighten up a little bit.
Absolutely.
Well, what we're really describing here is to have fun with it, right? Like you can enjoy yourself and be yourself, and that makes everything much more enjoyable for you and the kids. So a strong message. So that's it. Pretty much it for the GotTech hot seat, and we're almost out of time. But Jen, I want to ask you one more thing. At the beginning, I mentioned that you were a finalist for the Illinois State Teacher of the Year. When do you hear about the final decision on that?
Oh, well, it's been decided.
Okay.
I was not the big winner.
Sorry.
That's okay. They announced it in October.
Okay.
There were 10 of us that were finalists, and the winner was a band teacher from down south. I mean, every one of the finalists had an amazing, long, incredible story. So all very deserving. So it's cool to just be grouped in with that bunch of teachers. So
Nick's pretty familiar with that because he just got done with his. He was he was our county teacher of the year, and then
yeah.
And then he got to go to a big conference where they announced the winner. But it's well deserving. The guy's weird as all get out. So.
Did it have a cash prize? Did you get anything? Because I didn't get anything.
No, you don't get anything. It's actually, you just get more work, more assignments. So it was one of those things. I asked you because I'm always curious people's responses. Like it would be great to have, but it was sort of like mixed emotions. Like, do I really want to take this on? And actually in New Jersey, you have to go on a half-year sabbatical. They pull you out of the classroom and you go work in the state Department of Education for a while on some kind of a project, which is cool. But then I was like, do I really want to be out of my class away from the kids? So did yours have something similar or?
The state of Illinois used to pay teachers, and several years ago that got taken away. So if you do win, you are still a teacher for the year and you're expected to do all this other extra work. So it is sort of a blessing in disguise when you don't have to do that. But I have enough stuff to do anyways. So there's always things like we got put into a Teach Plus fellowship about education policy. It's kind of like being back in, graduate school for that and asked to talk at stuff. And there's still plenty of work to be done.
Nice. Yeah. All right. So that's it for our show here today. Jen, we'd like to thank you so much for coming on. There's so many awesome tools we got to talk about and so much inspiration from you. I just want to encourage everybody one more time to check out her YouTube web series, Reset EDU, for even more ideas and even more inspiration. So thank you very much for coming on the show. This was great.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to GotTech the Podcast. Remember to subscribe to our show and follow us at We Got Tech on Twitter so you can stay up to date with the latest episode releases, blog posts, product reviews, and PD announcements. You can also follow Geis and I individually at Geis Got Tech and at Nick Got Tech on Twitter or on Instagram at Nick Got Tech. Finally, remember to check out our website, GotTechED.com, where we post all our episodes, articles, and resources available to you for free. Until next time.